Hi everyone, Jamie here, and thanks for joining me for this video. I don't normally put narration to my videos, but I felt I should do something a little bit different for this one. So this is a real-time sketch in my sketchbook. It's a watercolour sketchbook, and I'm painting this view, which is local to me, just down the road, out in the fen where we go for walks with the dog. I particularly like the contrast between the road sign with its red border against a very natural background. So to start with, I'm just very quickly sketching in the composition. So we have the main road going through the centre of the drawing with its grass verges. And it's really important to make sure that these horizon lines are straight and level. The fen landscape here in Cambridgeshire in the UK is all about the flat landscape, those very straight lines. And then we've got some detail here for some trees. So I'm just going to quickly again put these in. Not a huge amount of detail. It's going to be quite a loose, sketchy sketch. Not a lot of detail really, but I can emphasise a lot with the pencil marks because they will show through the transparent layers of watercolour that I'm going to put in. So I'm just making sure to check against my reference photo, making sure I've got things in the right place. And that line of the telegraph wire is important because it pulls the eye down into the centre of the sketch. You always want to look for things that you can see that can do this, bring people into the focal point of the painting. You want the eye to move around your painting, your sketch. What you don't want to do is draw people out of the painting, so you don't want lines that disappear straight out left and right off of the painting. You want to draw people in. So on that left hand side, obviously I've got the horizon line that moves left to right towards what will be the very bright red sign. The red sign itself is sitting on a green verge that goes off into the middle of the painting. The telegraph wire goes down into that same central point with the telegraph pole towards the trees that sit there in the middle of the painting, and the verge on the right hand side and the horizon line bringing the eye into the middle as well. So it makes the viewer move along that road down towards the distance there between the trees. Gives it a sense of perspective, and it tells a bit of a story as well. Obviously there's a bit of a clue there with the sign, which has got a bends warning on it. So you know that off into the distance the road twists and turns. So I'm in here with just a bit of a grey-blue colour that's mixed up with a bit of phthalo and a bit of Payne's grey. Just going to very lightly put this in. That's going to dry a little bit lighter than it is at the moment. At this point I remembered that I need to just put a bulldog clip on the page to stop that moving and curling up. So again, just very quickly, loosely putting this in just to get rid of that bright white paper. Now I'm mixing up a very bright yellow, it's a lemon yellow, with a little bit of cerulean blue in it. That just gives me the lightest green colour that I need for these trees. And that just put wet and wet onto that background sky layer. So wherever there's trees and foliage, I'm just going to put that in. If I want it to be darker later on, I can do that just straight over the top and that'll cover that up. Just putting some base layers in, getting rid of the white. And these will be my lightest tones for the whole sketch. So in watercolour we're aiming to paint light to dark. thin to thick paint. I'm just dropping some of that sky colour back into that green. Next I'm mixing up a rich earthy colour, put in for the fields. So this is a little bit of alizarin crimson. Again, I can dull this down and change the tone of it or the warmth of it if I want to later on. But again, it's just putting some layers down to get us started with the sketch. Again, I'm not being too accurate here, I'm just being quite loose, just get these colours on. Quick blast with the hairdryer and I can move on to the second layer. So for this I've created a violet colour. I'm just laying that over the top. Because these are in the distance, they tend to go more of a blue tone than green, but you've got a little bit of that green coming through as well, which adds, it's not just a flat colour, you've got a couple of layers going on there. But that's what I really need to do for those background trees. Again, there's no detail here, it's just the suggestion of trees in the distance. Everything else in front of it is going to be our focus for this sketch. So now with a stronger green colour here, a bit warmer as well, so I've added a little bit of alizarin crimson to some lemon yellow and some cerulean blue. Just begins to warm up these trees here, and then I've added even more blue to this, and you can see it gives me a stronger tone there. Going down towards the bottom of the trees, which will be more in shadow. You can see already that that's beginning to take shape. And so we're just going to repeat the process for here. A little bit warmer for these trees. Again, it doesn't matter if it's not the exact same colour. It is, after all, just a quick sketch to get some ideas down, get a feel for this view, whether this will work as a larger painting. But the sketchbooks really are just for fun, exploring, experimenting with different ideas, seeing what works and doesn't work. I'm just dropping a bit more paint into this wet and wet, and also just making some shadows in those right hand trees. I'm just introducing some closer bushes and hedges around here. So I'm going to be stronger in colour as we get towards the foreground. So here I'm introducing a much stronger green colour here, just indicating where the trunks for the trees are, adding in some stronger tones. Again, working quickly, wet and wet here. And I can always make these stronger if need be once it's dried. So at this point, now that I've got a few of the mid-tones in, I can start to put some stronger colour in. So we'll just use some cadmium red here and get that first pop of colour in there for the street sign. Next, just with a loose grey colour, Payne's grey, get this post in, and there's some rusty parts in this metal pole for the sign, so I'm just dropping some alizarin crimson in there. Again, doesn't have to be too accurate, but it looks better than just a solid grey colour, which in reality it's not. There's going to be shadows in there as well and different marks. Now I've mixed up some alizarin crimson and some cadmium orange here, and that warms up this earthy colour. I'm just dropping in some warmer colour here onto the road, and I'm just going to pull that down just with a wet brush. Don't want it too strong. And you can see the underlying layers show through as well. So again, just quickly dried up the hairdryer, and we're in now with some detail. This is some strong Payne's grey. I'm just putting the bend sign in here. I'm just going to start adding in some detail. Working across the painting here, I can just judge what's going on and just looking at how things are working. So we've got some strong colour on there, but it's quite flat, so I'm going to introduce some stronger shadow colour here. Again, not being too accurate, but just giving the impression of some stronger tones. So we've put those tree trunks in, and just pulling some of that colour up for the branches. We could do the same for these trees on the left hand side. Not quite as strong this time. I've made the colour a little bit greener. That just knocks it back a little bit further than the foreground tree. So we'll introduce this telegraph pole here. Got a strong colour. And we're just putting some details now in for this sign. So introducing some shadows, some stronger colour here. We always want to paint things as if they're sat within the landscape. We don't want them floating on nothing, so they need to be connected to the ground. They need to be connected to the landscape. So you either want to bring them forward by almost creating an edge to them, or you want to be knocking them back by softening the edges. That all helps to make it look quite realistic. So now that I've got some quite strong colour in, I can judge that the verges need a lot more colour in them. So we're going to put some viridian green and some lemon yellow here, make it quite a strong green. Introduce some edges. Just define where that road is. This is a single track road, which is quite normal for around here. These roads actually are more farm access routes than they are main roads. So I'm going back in with the pencil now, just to put some of that detail in. It'd be a bit of a hassle, to be honest, to try and put this all in with the brush, so pencil works just fine. It is a sketch after all. Just a quick and easy way of adding in that detail. I could do the same for these trees. Don't put quite so much detail in this because obviously it's sitting a little bit further back, so it's not up close. Don't need a huge amount of detail. So now I'm getting towards the end of this sketch, and I just want to increase the tones around here in the foreground grasses. So almost it's not really a dry brush, it's a little bit more water in there, but it just adds a little bit to this grass here. Again, just being quite quick and just connecting some colour here really, so I'm adding some more of this green into these trees as well. Makes it a bit more harmonious as a sketch. So we've got some warm colours there for the fields, and that same warm colour is in the metal post of the sign, and the greens now are connected together as well. So I want this to be a bit sketchy, so I'm just experimenting here about what if I put some coloured pencil in, make some marks, add a bit of movement to this. So I'm using a Faber-Castell Polychromos coloured pencil here, and this is a strong orange colour. I did used to do a lot of sketches and paintings like this, And I'm just really revisiting it and just seeing how it works, seeing if I enjoy the process and does it work as a painting as well. Let me know what you think in the comments below. Just add some movement. There's always a wind blowing across this landscape, and it just adds a little bit of movement, and it just adds different kind of texture, a bit of different feel to the sketch. And see, I'm just putting in some perspective lines there on the track. And that foreground again is looking a bit flat, so I want to introduce some shadows here. So this is some ultramarine blue, which obviously changes colour when you add it onto the layers that are already there. Kind of just dulls it down a little bit. It's not really that strong, but it just adds something to the painting. Again, it's all just an experiment. I'm just seeing how far I can push this idea. I'm using the end of the brush there just to move that paint around, as if it's the shadow of the blades of grass, the longer grass on the verges. And it's a big tree, I'm going to have to put in a big shadow, so I'm just going to adjust that shadow going across the field till I'm happy. There isn't actually a shadow on the reference photo, but it doesn't matter. Again, it's just an experiment, it's just seeing what I can do with it. But adding that shadow does make a big difference to the painting. Suddenly you've got the introduction of some lights and darks. So there we go, that's pretty much it. I hope you've enjoyed a bit of a different video this time with the talking on it and slightly different style of sketch going on here. Let me know what you think in the comments, good or bad, I can take it. But I hope it's just showing you what you can do. This video is about 17 minutes long, just over. And you can be quite creative in that short amount of time, 15-20 minutes. Just sit down with your paints and your pencils and just have a go and see what you can produce. So if you did like it, please give it a thumbs up below. Please share it as well. Subscribe to the channel if you want to see some more paintings like this. Until next time, thanks for watching and take care.